After a good long while away during the bitter cold of January and most of February, I'm back at the bus today on Saturday. I've got some supplies in. This is some tubing that I'm going to use as a conduit for the two-wire lighting wiring here. This is probably 20-some gauge, but good enough for the LED lights. But I'm about to embark on getting the ceiling put in. I'm going to have a top-down approach to the finishing of the bus here. But the next thing I want to really get done here is putting a ceiling in. Ours is going to have sort of using the former hatches here to find center. I'm going to create a center line. There's going to be a 3-foot wide piece of 1/4-inch ply tacked up onto runners that go along the length of the bus. So I need five pieces at 3 foot wide, and then I'm going to have 10 pieces at 18 inches wide that go next to that, and then I'll have 10 pieces at 1 foot wide to do the edges. So we'll kind of follow the curve, but the individual pieces are going to be flat plywood rather than building a barreled ceiling matching the line of the bus. I'm going to create some dead space, a little bit of dead space behind to fish wires through, as well as this conduit here. That way I won't have to ever take the ceiling down using this to hold the wiring. I'll be able to just pull the wire out and put a new piece in if it breaks. So these will be used from the edge of the wall over here up into where each light will go, and then we'll have our 12-volt lighting wiring, 12-volt wiring running that length, and then we'll also mount those microcontrollers in a chase that'll go along the edge here. At least most of them will get, 3 of them anyway, will get mounted that way. So anyhow, what I'm doing today, I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to be working quickly on either the hatch supports underneath. I might pull these wood hatches up and cut plywood and fasten plywood to reinforce the metal structure and to create boxes underneath. Or I may start, I think I'm going to also start laying out the bunk here that's going to go up in the front, and then from there we'll be able to put the overcap bunk together. Okay, so what I did here is I laid it out so the bottom of the bunk is at the red dots here, and red marks, and that's 6 feet above this driver's platform level, which will be about the level of the rest of the floor up front here when it's finished, including the finished wood. That part will get some kind of a rubberized, maybe even just some truck bed liner. I'm not sure. Something will go there that isn't carpet or isn't wood. It'll be a little different material. So anyway, that way there's, for a normal person or an average person, there will be headroom. Might be a little tight for some of the taller folks, but my wife and I are both short, so I think I am going to leave the platform fixed. That way I can build a closed-off wall behind the driver area. I'm doing that and insulating that wall as well as this bed platform because we're going to leave the original bus door in, and it's going to be leaky, no matter what. So for not firing up the diesel heater in the cab area, then it would let a lot of cold air in to the back of the bus. So there will be a closed-off door, probably a sliding door here, and maybe a thermal curtain right about where I'm standing. At the edge of the couch here, there'll be a wall going up into the bunk supports, which are going to start over here and continue over that way. And then I may build, I'm not sure exactly where the wall is going to fall, but I may build a cabinet in, or a bookshelf in, before the bunk actually starts, up at head height. I don't know. I got to think about the layout, but there's some creative things we could do with that space. Possibly a shelf system for books or something that goes up. I got lots of ideas about how to use that and create a little privacy for the bunk at the same time. The entry for the bunk will be on this side. We're going to have a step up on like shelving cubes next to the entertainment center, and then a grandkid or somebody can get up there. I'm hopeful that we'll have enough head height for the person sleeping. Certainly they're not going to be able to fully sit up in the bunk, but for a child or 2 children it should work just fine. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I had a perfectly sized piece of plywood trimmed at 41 inches to make runners. These are going to support the bunk, riveted to the metal with 4 rivets each side, possibly also a screw. But the idea here is we're going to cut these runners, then above them we're going to set the thicker pieces of 2x, which will form the base for the bunk. And at that point we'll be able to put a top lid, insulation in the middle. Well, maybe not insulation in the middle because the bed has to breathe, but I'll be putting, over there you see some vented metal from the bus, from the ceiling. I'll be putting that vented metal in as the bottom of the bunk in the cab area. And then we'll trim it out with just some round over or molding or something. But anyhow, I also probably will paint that a more desirable color, most likely white, just high gloss white. So anyhow, right now I'm going to cut these runners, and then we'll get the bunk area started. I have the runners cut. This one here is going to go on the driver's side. This will be on the passenger side. It's smaller because of the mechanism to open the door. And then I'll fill in with some insulation board behind these. The idea here is to rivet these to the metal just the same as the side walls, and then we will support 2x4s, probably 2x4s, maybe a mix of I've got a 2-inch box beam too that may go into the middle. I have to think about that for extra strength, but 2x4s ought to be strong enough as the supports across, especially since we're building a wall on one side and the other side's reinforced against the front. So anyhow, I think I'll stick with wood, but at this point the next step is to insulation, or to do the insulation behind it and drill the holes and do recessed rivets like we did for the side walls, and that'll go up there and then on the opposite side. To mount that wood, my next step here is to drill out this piece of metal that I was holding the insulation in with temporarily. From there I'm going to get the wood put in place, drill 1/4-inch holes, then widen a little bit of a recess for the rivets. So there's going to be 2 or 3 rivets on this one per upright to support the bed frame. So I've got some holes drilled here on each side, 2 on each, and then I've started adding the insulation in. I'm going to put another piece here, and after that I will rivet that piece of wood in place. You see the red marks here are sort of where the bunk is going to lay at the bottom. So anyhow, I'm going to get this thing riveted up. So we've got that piece of insulation kind of cut to fit there. I've shoved a little bit of insulation down into this piece of metal. So I think I'll cut a chunk for right there, and then I'll put the wood in place. So the trusty riveter got this piece of wood put in place here. I'll be filling in with a rectangular piece right there, another rectangular piece above after I patch the holes from cutting for the roof raise up here. I probably can't see any light shining through because it's dark out. But there's damage I have to repair up there. I will use a welding blanket to keep the insulation from catching fire when I do that. But it'll be after I build the top bunk, so I can easily get up there and work. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. So right now we've got the other side done. We've got a runner there over the mechanism to open and close the door. And we've got this side covered. And I'm going to take a measurement to make sure I didn't screw anything up. As long as it's within about, I'd say an 1/8 inch, we're good. But I'm going to measure from that edge at the top down to each board, kind of see where we're at, make sure it's going to be, you know, fairly level. Of course, nothing on a bus is actually level, but you know, for my own OCD purposes, I'm going to take a measurement. So I'm unloading some plywood here. It's 3/8 AC plywood. We're going to do our roof without a curve. It's going to have sort of a vaulted look, you know, the ceiling, not the roof, I mean, inside the bus. So this plywood is just about the right thickness to not bow when I tack it up in place with finished nails. I may actually use screws too, I don't know. It depends on how I decide to finish the seams. But the idea here is we're going to prime and paint. First I'm going to cut the pieces to size, then we're going to prime and paint. I'll be working with 5 pieces at 36 inches wide, 10 pieces at 18, and 10 pieces at 12. And that will maximize the plywood usage here, minimize waste is what I'm saying. So the 3-foot piece will go in the middle as a flat part in the center of the ceiling. So I'm going to unload this trailer, and then I keep working on the bunk. So I just noticed as I came through the yard here, I hit a wet spot, and that's a different kind of stained wood there, a little mud. So I should have wrapped that in plastic, but didn't. So anyway, nothing that primer and paint won't cover after it dries, but I guess I should have been a little more careful with the way I packaged up the trailer. I cut the first piece for the bunk. The one in the front's going to be 86. This stick here is 88 inches wide, so there's a 1-inch differential for the curvature as it approaches the nose of the bus here. So I'm going to be building this to be a twin bed, and I'm not going to lock it down until I get the plywood in behind it, along with the insulation. But I'm going to be building this as a twin bed, or twin XL I should say. It's going to be 80 inches long, so it'll fit a twin XL mattress. That way, in case say an adult does sleep up there, it will be plenty long enough even for somebody fairly tall. So anyhow, I'm going to put the second piece up here. So there's the second piece of the bunk up, and what I'm going to do is build a box frame out of 2x3, and then it's going to be clad with plywood 3/4 on the top, and on the bottom it's going to have vented steel, perforated steel that was part of the ceilings of the bus originally. That will allow it to vent. Plywood will have holes in it where the mattress is going to go. I'll be drilling some holes with a Forstner bit, so that we don't get any mold under the mattress. But this will strengthen it because there'll be extra wood thickness, and then there'll also on this side be some supports, and on that side you can see the angle below the wood. I'm going to wedge some plywood in there and screw that in place in the final analysis here, so that the skin itself is supporting that side, and then this side will have supports from the wall that's going to be built on this end. So that's the plan. I got 4 supports here, Craig jigged, and I've got these 2 pieces cut. I've added 1 inch to each side's dimensions so that the mattress and blankets can be tucked in. The standard dimension of twin XL is 39 by 80, so I made this 41 by 81 for total dimensions for the box. So I'm going to use this to hold those 2 2x4s together, and I'm going to screw 2.5 to 2 3/4 inch screws in once I build this space frame with the Craig jig. I've just finished drilling these holes. Now I'm going to fasten it together. I'm back at the bus. Yesterday evening I roughed in here the framing for the bunk. It's got 3 sections here with supports. They're tied in on the end. I'll be screwing a 2x4 into the plywood underneath. And as I mentioned, there's going to be, I think I'm going to do a bookshelf here up to about the height that will allow us to get the twin mattress in. Probably about right in here. And that bookshelf may extend over to some degree, depending on the headroom I need as you walk up in. I may do a diagonal here or just stop it at 30 inches. I got to think about that. There's going to be a sliding door that I ordered hardware for. And then over here, there's going to be storage that probably is going to be soft cube storage for just miscellaneous storage. That might be camera gear or extra shoes or whatever goes in those bins. But I'm going to have a few bins, probably 2 deep, and then we'll kind of staircase it up a little bit so that a child or whoever could climb up those cube holders and use it like a staircase to get up into the bunk. And then there'll be a wall that separates here. May also be some bookshelf on that side, but the door is going to slide so that it's fully closed, and I'm going to have a window in that door right in here. And there will be a step down below here, a single step from that level to get up onto the platform. So what I'm going to do now is build the top for this out of plywood. It's going to be hinged, and then down below we're going to use sheet metal, and then this will give us a space to tuck in things like board games or maps or atlases or whatever underneath the bed. Just a little place to tuck things we don't use very often, sort of out of the way. So that's my thought process there. So I'm going to get started building the plywood top. Once that's in place, I'll be able to fix these outside issues, and then I'll be able to start on the ceiling. So that's the plan. I've got the first piece of plywood in place and the second piece cut, hopefully to the right dimension. I'm going to put the second piece in place, and I'll be installing hinges, and I'm going to put a cross support up in here in the middle of each to compartmentalize just this front piece for storage. Then this back piece would be fairly inaccessible, even, with the mattress in the way, it would be kind of hard to get to anyway. So that'll give us a middle support for the plywood. And so I'm going to put this piece up in place and get 6 hinges put across it. So I'm up on the bunk. I've got the plywood put down in 2 sections. I've got 4 hinges actually put on. I don't know where my other pack of hinges went. I'll add 2 more if I can find them. Put 2 in the center here because it was a little bit bowed on this side. And try to straighten out the bow. The weight of somebody sleeping in the bunk and the mattress will eventually straighten that out. But for now I've got these extra hinges in the middle. So at this point I'm going to cut some pieces as cross braces and get this fixed section partitioned off so that stuff wouldn't slide in there. And I'm going to test this for opening from the bottom after I get down. So anyway, it's pretty solid. It's holding my weight even without any reinforcement, without an issue. Doesn't really bounce, so I'm confident that it's a good setup. So this hinges up without an issue. And at this point I'm going to put cross bracing in underneath. Whoop, watch my footing. Alright, I'm going to put cross bracing in underneath here, right at the seam, so that the center's secured. So I got to measure for those pieces. So now these cross supports are screwed in with pocket holes. I alternated the direction so that the screws wouldn't collide inside the wood. So I've got these in place. Now I'm going to screw the fixed part down to these to secure that end. And I think that'll be it for the evening. But at this point I've got a platform I can get up on to weld and get the cracks on the edge of the bus done from the roof raise process. After that we can get the ceiling done. Maybe a little wiring to do, but anyhow, I'm going to get those screws put in. Okay, so I've got that screwed in, and I'm going to stop for the night here. We've got the cross bracing in the middle, and after this I'm going to drill ventilation holes in this plywood, probably each of them 2 inches or 1.5 inches maybe. I got to see what I have for Forstner bits or hole saws. And I think at that point I'll be able to continue with the sides here, get some more plywood up, finish that edge and this side here. There's going to be plywood against the wall holding this in, and then there'll be additional support underneath, probably a 2x4 on each side. And I'm going to brace it over there in the middle on the steel. Got to think about how I'm doing that. Probably with 2x4 blocking that's going to be screwed in with long screws against that angle iron that's behind there. And then we'll get this insulated and frame this in with plywood. I'll need to make sure that my wiring for the automotive lighting will be accessible. I'll probably have a little removable hatch for that. And anyhow, this will progress, but I feel good I've got this bunk in place. I wanted to build this way because when I was a kid traveling on an old Tioga RV, I just enjoyed the heck out of sitting up in the bunk and looking at the sights. I know it's not super safe, but just a childhood thing, looking at some sights we were driving. And, you know, it's kind of like a little kid's kingdom up here, so I'm thinking of grandkids. We have at least one grandkid already, so probably lots more with as many kids as I have. So anyhow, that's why I wanted to do it, just because I think kids find it really amusing. Also, it gives us a good spot for storing things that don't get used very often. Maybe my telescope and things like that. It'd be nicely padded, laying it on a mattress up here when nobody's along for the ride. So anyhow, that's why I did this.